I think the balance works out, and I don't think a lot of people can see how it works out. They're making the wrong assumption on various things. Like they're assuming the dividend will never decrease, and I think that's a mistake. And they're assuming that Bitcoin won't go up, which is also a mistake too.
Something doesn't quite add up. Right now, the crypto market feels fragile. Fear is spreading fast. And many investors have already convinced themselves that Bitcoin's best days are behind it. Every small pullback is being treated like the beginning of another major collapse. But what if the market is reacting to the wrong story? One narrative making the rounds is that Michael Saylor's sale of just 32 Bitcoin somehow triggered panic across the market. But history tells a very different story. Back in 2022, Saylor sold nearly 700 Bitcoin for tax-related reasons. Yet Bitcoin eventually recovered and went on to reach a new all-time high above $126,000. So why would a sale of only 32 Bitcoin suddenly change Bitcoin's long-term trajectory? That's exactly why Samson says Bitcoin is being misunderstood. His argument isn't based on hype, it's based on scarcity. Bitcoin is a finite asset that was worth virtually nothing in 2009, yet has grown into one of the world's most valuable financial assets while attracting increasing adoption from institutions, corporations, sovereign wealth, and even governments. At the same time, regulatory and policy developments continue to make Bitcoin more accessible than ever before. If those long-term fundamentals haven't weakened, then why are so many convinced the opportunity is over? Is the market simply reacting to short-term fear while ignoring the bigger picture? Samson believes the next major Bitcoin breakout may be much closer than most people realize. Listen carefully as he explains why today's uncertainty could be setting the stage for what comes next.
So I think net of everything does work together well, and it is a very well-oiled machine. Now, the part about Saylor buying back bonds, buying back debt, I think people just don't like the idea that he's not buying more Bitcoin, right? But it is financial planning. It is corporate planning of how to manage finances. And I think it is, I didn't read all the details into it, but I'm pretty sure it was net accretive to shareholders by buying back the debt at a discount now. So I guess to all the haters, you have to just ask yourself, like, if you're that good at financial engineering, then how come you don't have this vehicle on the market that is buying massive amounts of Bitcoin, getting to 1 million coins soon?
So what is your perspective now on the cycles, and how much longer will this bear market last?
I still don't believe in the cycles. They're just coincidence. And, you know, it can continue forward in the future. You might have another apparent cycle. You might have one more after that. Who knows? But it is just not the way things work. If the cycles were ironclad, and maybe you could say that they were driven by the halving, but I don't think the halving is that material anymore, especially when the supply is so low from mined Bitcoin relative to the existing supply, and the raw demand for mined Bitcoin. Like, I think Strategy is buying multiple times of the mined Bitcoin already for this year, and we're only in June. So that's not the cycle. Could it be a political cycle? I don't know, but these things just happen to line up, and they might continue to line up, but there is no reason in math or physics or anything that says Bitcoin must follow this 4-year trajectory forever.
One question has left even long-time Bitcoin investors scratching their heads. If geopolitical uncertainty is supposed to benefit scarce assets, then why didn't Bitcoin explode higher during the Iran conflict? While the S&P 500 continued climbing toward fresh record highs, gold surged to historic levels above $3,500 an ounce. Oil prices spiked on supply fears, and defense stocks rallied sharply as investors repositioned for risk. Yet Bitcoin barely reacted. To many critics, that's a sign Bitcoin's narrative is breaking. But Samson believes the market is missing something much bigger. He argues that one of Bitcoin's greatest catalysts isn't simply fear, it's entropy. Major shifts don't happen overnight. They build beneath the surface before repricing arrives all at once. So is Bitcoin lagging, or is it quietly setting up for its next explosive move while everyone is watching the wrong signals? Listen carefully to Samson Mao's response, because it may completely change how you interpret what the market is doing right now.
So why is everything else up while Bitcoin is languishing?
It's difficult to say. It could be that people are rebalancing their portfolios in anticipation of some of the big AI company IPOs coming. I think SpaceX is one that people are really salivating over. And then there's Anthropic and everything. But, these things come and they go. And it's not a sure thing that buying the IPO is a good idea, especially at these valuations. These are very, very high valuations. But, people are generally sheep and they follow what's the trendy thing to put your money into. And I think it's just that Bitcoin is not the trendy thing right now. And that's probably what's keeping us down. But this is the opportunity for the true believers to accumulate. There are a lot of people out there that still are buying Bitcoin, and I think that fact is lost sometimes because you're focused on the ETFs, you're focused on strategy and other treasury companies, Strive and everyone else, but there are just normal people buying Bitcoin every day. There's raw demand. There are the plebs that are DCAing every single day, every week, every month, and other big holders that are not publicly talking about it that are accumulating too. So net of it all, I would say we're still in a very good situation with Bitcoin. It's just the broader market sentiment seems to be looking at other things, right? The current thing. And that's just an opportunity for people to understand Bitcoin. So if you look at the AI stocks or even tech stocks in general, all of those companies eventually have to store value somewhere, right? Like if you look at SpaceX, they have Bitcoin on balance sheet. If they successfully do their IPO and they raise a bunch of capital, or NVIDIA or Anthropic, they have a lot of revenues and they want to keep their money, eventually someone has to reach that same conclusion as Saylor did and realize that keeping your money in fiat money is a melting ice cube and it'll come back to Bitcoin. And when those big players start moving back to Bitcoin, the retail investors will follow. But yeah, I've seen someone say the ETFs were the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin because we've had, I think, 11 days of outflows now. But everything that flows out must flow back in. It's just like the tide. It ebbs and it wanes sometimes. And I think, people were also critiquing like nation states buying Bitcoin and, politicians rug pulling and not delivering. And I think that's my take on the whole vibe. And obviously some people are mad at the orange ties too, but permissionless neutral money is for everyone. There's that saying, Bitcoin is for enemies. So you can not like that people are using Bitcoin in a certain way, but that's just the nature of the beast. And I think Iran is now taking Bitcoin for insurance on ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Is that okay? Like, if you can define what anybody, any nation, or any company can do with Bitcoin, then there's a problem there. You've gone right back to the fiat system, and that's exactly what they do. When Russia attacked Ukraine, okay, well, we're gonna cut them off, So I don't think people realize what they're saying when they're saying it. But if you want neutral money, you have to be okay with neutral money, and that does mean that companies like Strategy will build products, and maybe Saylor will say something like, we turn Bitcoin into money. And it doesn't really matter. He's saying something. It's a marketing thing. And you should just let him say it. Like, it doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin is money. I've had people reply to that thread and say, well, we need to fight for Bitcoin and make Bitcoin money. Like, that's not how it works. Like, what are you going to do? Use Bitcoin as money harder? Like, spend harder? I don't know what you do. Like, and then someone else critiqued and saying, well, nation states mining Bitcoin, do you approve of that? And I'm like, yes, the nation states mining Bitcoin is a good thing. And he quoted Mises and said, well, it's crowding out the Bitcoiners and less Bitcoin because nation states can mine at a loss and all that. But these are all very good things. But exactly how does your feelings about it impact the world. Like, yes, you can disapprove of a nation state mining Bitcoin or holding Bitcoin, but does that change anything? Because nation states want what is valuable. If it wasn't Bitcoin, it would be bottle caps. Let's say we all traded bottle caps and we thought bottle caps are great. The nation state would want bottle caps eventually because that's what they need. They want money, and Bitcoin is money. So it's a natural evolution that they will want Bitcoin or to mine Bitcoin. But you can complain about that all you want, but it doesn't really change anything. And I think actually it's like thinking a few steps ahead or playing 4D chess, right? If every nation state is mining, that guarantees the decentralization of the network, because they'll just have a mining operation and they won't even know it's there. I mean, just think of how many systems are still running in the government that are not looked after anymore. They're just tucked away in some office somewhere, churning away. No one knows how to maintain it. No one even knows it exists anymore. That's kind of the end goal, that you have Bitcoin mining everywhere, and countries are mining, and they're just securing the network. And actually that will protect it from attacks, because they're not actively participating in attempts to change things or upgrade things, right? It kind of gives you this safety cushion. And also getting countries or nation states to adopt Bitcoin in some way is separation of money and state. Separation of money and state is not that you starve the government and you bankrupt them by not giving them your Bitcoin, because they have a monopoly on force. They can get money or financing in many, many ways, even restriction of your movement across borders. But if you can separate the printing ability, that actually starts to trigger a cascading effect of positives, which is you have a system now based on sound money, on hard money that cannot be duplicated and printed. And that has trickle down effects, like the people in the government will understand money better, and they will have better informed policies, and they will tend towards the Bitcoin ethos and towards freedom. So it's a really subtle thing, but I think people miss it, and they're looking at a very obvious thing right in front of them, which is, this group that I don't like is using Bitcoin. Well, I need to be outraged.